Hey, you know, we've been talking and we need to start doing these videos more often of discussing things that happen and just kind of just everyday discussions in life and just we're always chit chat about something. It's like we're
There's stuff going on around us or in the world and all that.
so yeah, we're pretty weird. And I had some stuff happen yesterday that just I just I use a phrase a lot that I hate people. I don't say that lightly. I truly do. And yesterday is just another example of why. I go see I for since I was 14, 15 years old, I've seen a rheumatologist. Started when I still lived in Michigan, and then I got referred to a doctor down here in Nebraska. And I started seeing him when I was 18, and he just recently retired. And in the same office, about 6 weeks ago, I was told that they were making an appointment with me to see somebody who he had handpicked for me to see because he had been my doctor for many years, and obviously he knows me pretty damn well.
Yeah, you said 29.
Yeah, 29 years that I'd been his patient. And so he actually lovingly referred to me as his unicorn just because of some of my health issues and stuff over the years, which is kind of cool. But so we made this appointment, and I don't remember the exact gal's name. I heard either her first name was Gabriella or her last name was Gabriel. So I should have fine tuned that yesterday. But I mean,
Was that your replacement?
yeah, that was the original replacement.
Okay.
Well, I get a notice a couple days ago before my appointment, and it says to confirm your appointment with such and such doctor at this location on yesterday's date of the 6th at the certain time, and it didn't have the right doctor name on there. And so I called, and they're like, well, we'll get it straightened out when you get here.
Kind of odd right off the bat.
Yeah, that just, but I was like, okay, it's like, I'm just switching to a new doctor after having the same one for 29 years. Maybe it's just a paperwork mix up in the office. That's what I'm hoping it is. No such luck. It just so happened Den was on the train the other day, and so I just switched the vehicles because I had Delta and I got Lexi. Delta is a 93 Lumina. Lexi is our '06 Ford 500.
Yeah, we use the Lexi for the longer distance trips.
Yeah, I honestly don't
Delta
trust
around
taking
town.
Delta to Omaha.
Yeah.
It's about 50 miles each way, so it's not a real long ways, but want a vehicle I know I can count on. So Lexi, 314,000 miles and all, she runs like a top. But not getting off subject here. So I go up there to the hospital, and there's signs everywhere. Masks required, must be worn over nose and mouth. Well, we wear what we call our fake masks. I mean, they're perforated like a mesh material. And it's like, if I'm going to wear one, that's literally the only one I'm going to wear.
I got one over here.
You got one over there? Go grab it real quick. But it's just, oh, you do have one. Awesome. I don't know if you guys can see. It's literally perforated.
You
The
can
one
see through the screen.
yeah, hi. The one I have in my purse is red, but it's literally the exact same thing, just the red material. So
And we've been to several places and nobody said a word.
no, and even the hospital with all of these like COVID restrictions and stuff, I go in wearing that, and it says you have to go in and you have to go through this check-in process. Well, I'm like, okay. And they go in and they rub this thing across my forehead to take my temperature. I'm used to like the ear thing or like the laser thing that points at your forehead.
Almost
No.
sounds like something from Star Trek.
Yeah, they rub this thing all the way across my forehead, and I'm just like, okay. And then they're like, and then we need to take a swab. And I went like this to my nose. I'm like,
The hell
like,
you are.
it's like, I'm not doing a COVID test just to go in there. And they're like, oh, no worries. We're just going to swab the back of your throat. So that's about the look I had on my face. And I'm just goes like, ah. And you know that thing when they swab the back of your throat for like a strep test or something. And they get back there and you're like, I don't know how else to describe
A
it.
real dry feeling.
But it makes you feel like you want to gag. And I'm like, okay. And then obviously I wasn't running a temperature, and they asked me where I was going. And I'm like, I'm going to rheumatology. And they were like pointing the directions. And I'm like, yeah. Been a patient here for almost 30 years. I think I know where to go. Well, I get upstairs finally, and okay, I'm missing a step here. I get on the elevator, and there's a gal standing in the elevator, and she's a custodian type person. And as soon as I press the button, she sprays it and wipes it down. Then, as soon as I go to get out or whatever, she sprays it and wipes it down again. I'm like going, I didn't touch it again. I didn't say that, but I'm thinking that. I'm just kind of like going.
And the funny thing is, you go anywhere else, you never see this going on.
No. And it's just, and everywhere it's like masks must be worn over nose and mouth. And I'm just like, and I was going to take a picture of like some of these signs just to show the absurdity of it. And the security guy walks right up to me and he's like, no photography, no recording. Okay. And he puts his hand like right that in front of the camera to make sure I didn't take a picture. Except, I mean, this is front facing and the other was rear facing, but I mean, he just put his hand like right. And I'm just was like, okay. Because I didn't see it underneath the thing where it said the mask must be worn over nose and mouth. And I didn't see the thing that said no photography or recording, which of course is in print this freaking tall at the bottom of the sign. Like, who's going to notice that unless they're really like reading every little last bit.
And you're just taking a picture of a sign.
Yeah, I was just taking a picture of the sign. There was nobody in the picture. There was no people. There was nothing even identifying not even, where I was at.
Not even hospital property, technically.
Yeah.
I mean, unless they want to consider a piece of paper property. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? But I get upstairs, and once I get up there, I'm addicted to this stuff. It's if you're not familiar with it, it's sparkling ice. It's flavored sparkling water.
Made by Budweiser.
Yeah, though it's non-alcoholic.
No, it's not.
And it's quite good, actually. And I had about that much left in my bottle. And I walk in there and it's like no food or drink. And I'm just, at this point, I'm just getting really annoyed at this point. And so I happen to see there's a trash can. And I pitched the bottle a little ways. I was intentionally trying to like throw it kind of hard just because I was just getting perturbed.
Ding, ding, ding.
And it bounced off the post and fell into the trash can. And it was also like one of those little cheap metal trash cans, but it made a hell of a racket. And the check-in gal is like, that was unnecessary. And I'm just like, okay, but make it a point. I actually was able to understand what she said when she said that was unnecessary. Because she was in the process of checking somebody else in. And the person that she was checking in walked away, and I go to step forward because I'm the next person there. And she goes, you need to wait until I call you up. Okay. Like there should have been maybe a sign or something saying, please wait until asked to approach something. Especially if they're going to have that attitude.
Yeah, I've never heard of a hospital being that curt to their clientele.
No, and then, so finally she waves me up. Just the casual, just waves me up. And and I noticed as I get up closer, she's got 2 masks on. She's got one of the N95 masks, and then she's got one of those blue masks, like the typical hospital doohickey masks over it. So this girl's got 2 masks on, and she's like, hello?
Almost like a humanoid dodo bird.
And I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing you. And so she pulls the mask, and she goes, can I get your name, please? I'm like, Jennifer Lane, Lane. You'd be amazed how many people misspell Lane. That's a whole other story.
Had it all my life.
And then she's trying to and she's about to try to understand if I'm being right here. I mean, she was just really muffled. I was really having a hard time understanding her. Not that I was ignoring her or trying to be an asshole, but I couldn't understand what she was saying.
I have a hard time understanding that stuff.
And so she kept having to pull it away, and then she gets my name, and then she goes, and at this point, I'm just like raising my hands up, Like, it's like I've already explained, I can't hear her. So she starts signing. I know very little sign language. She was assuming I was deaf. And I'm like, no, I can't hear you because you have your 2 masks on. You're muffled. It's like I do have a slight hearing thing in one ear, but otherwise than that, I can hear pretty normally.
Sometimes she has radar ears. That's another story too.
And so she starts pulling pulling this away just a little bit as she's talking to me. And then she gives me, there's a form to fill out every time you go there. And so she gives me the form. And then she goes, again, I'm just like, I just raised my hands like, I don't know what you're trying to say. And it's like, I'm not chuckling at this point. I'm just like, I'm really getting perturbed. I'm not happy. And so she just points at the pen cup. And so I grab a pen, sit down, start filling stuff out. Then they come call my name to go back. And so we do that and we go through the door. And then she runs this other thing across my head. I'm just like, okay. And let me add in, right after they had done that downstairs, they gave me a little sticker. And they told me I had to place it on my left chest as a sticker with the date. They didn't write my temperature or anything on it. It just said 10-6 is all it said on it.
Almost sounds like the whole Jewish Star thing.
Yeah, pretty much. But they said it had to be on the left chest. It had to be on a specific area. I'm just like, okay. So, but I mean, back upstairs, it's just I forgot to add that little part. But so we're going in there and she takes my temperature again, rubs this thing around. I'm like, they just did that downstairs. And she's like, well, we have to verify that your temperature didn't raise in between there and here. So my temperature is going to go up on riding an elevator for a few floors.
When she looks and feels perfectly fine and normal, I mean, most of the time I've ever known the temperature to go up, usually you feel like crap.
Pretty much. So then she has me to sit down. She takes my blood pressure. Everything is good there. My temperature's good. Then she has me step on the scale. And she's just like, mm-hmm. And I'm like, what's mm-hmm? She's just like, oh, she goes, they'll mention it to you in the room. I didn't see the number on it. It gives it in kilograms, but she wrote the number down in pounds. I don't read kilograms.
This is also, by the way, a reaction that she normally doesn't get when people take those basic things when you enter into a doctor's office and all that. Or
no.
The room. I mean, normally she's treated with courtesy and just, I mean, everything's normal and they're just like shooting the breeze and all that.
Yeah, and then we could go walking down to the exam room, and this gal's walking quite a bit faster than I walk. Anybody who knows me knows I'm not very fast. I've got limited mobility, so I'm kind of slow. And she kept stopping and just didn't say anything, just when she would stop and wait for me to catch up. I'm like, I apologize, I'm slow. And she goes, it's fine. Obviously, she was having a bad day. But I mean, everybody has bad days. I'm like, okay, trying not to. But it's just as the day goes on, it's just these things are just progressively getting more and more and more. Well, we get into the room and she sits down. We go over my medication list and my allergies and everything. And there's quite a few changes from when I was even there just 6 weeks ago. There was a bunch of changes to some of my heart meds and some of my other stuff that I'm on. So I just wanted to make sure everything was updated and current on that. And then she just said the doctor would be in shortly. This is... I laugh now. I was not laughing yesterday. I was almost on the verge of tears. And the doctor comes in. Naturally, I reach out my hand, shake a hand. He just naturally reacted and shook my hand. And then he was like, oh, and it goes over and uses the sanitizer 3 separate times. His reaction says it all. I mean, I'm just, okay, it's one thing to get a little sanitizer, wash your hands, but he did it and then wiped them and did it and wiped them and did it. And I just kind of stand there looking at him and he's like, oh, so I see you were a patient here for many years under Dr. Not for privacy reasons, I'm not going to mention his name. Because I mean, he still lives in this part of Nebraska, and I don't want to protect his privacy. He's a very private person. But It's like, yes, I've been a patient there for many years. And I'm like, this isn't the doctor. It's like, I just remember that it started with a G and it was like Gabriella or Gabriel or something like that. And that's when he pointed out that the doctor my doctor had handpicked for me to go to actually has moved to a different state to be under the doctor that originally referred me to this doctor in the first place. So this doctor has moved up to the University of Michigan, and they're probably gonna get a great doctor, knowing that my doctor handpicked her. So, but kind of left me in a mess. So now I just get stuck with this doctor that should not be a doctor. He may be knowledgeable on some things, but he's an idiot on others. And he's looking through
he's an appointed one, and I mean, he has no merit being there.
No, and he's looking over my chart, and he goes, fibromyalgia, it's all in the head. He goes, I see you've got a diagnosis of that, and it's not really a real thing. It kind of more has to do with when you have a lot of pain and a lot of stuff that we just can't explain with other medical tests. We just label as fibromyalgia, but it's really all a mental thing. And at this point, that look pretty much says it all. I mean, it's like shock, and I was like, what the fuck, dude?
I mean, I've heard about fibromyalgia for years. I didn't know a whole lot about what it was, but I've never heard of anybody saying it's some mental thing.
No, and then he's like, and I see that Dr. So-and-so has run a bunch of other tests and everything, and he goes, it looks like pretty much just complex diagnoses of different things, and he mentioned the osteoarthritis and everything, but he goes, I think it's just time we just clear all that and just label it as fibromyalgia. He goes, because I think the bigger issue here is it's about just maybe just the stuff with your head. And then he goes, I think the biggest part of it is you probably need to lose about 150 pounds. Okay, dude. I know I'm a big gal to begin with, but it's like...
Freaking idiot went way off course.
I mean, basically, he walks in the room, he sees I'm a bigger gal, and sees that my other doctor had put fibromyalgia along with my other diagnoses, and he completely ignored the other diagnoses. I've got bursitis in my shoulders, I've got tendonitis in a lot of joints throughout my body. I have a lot of rare a bunch of other things that are going on. I've got both osteo and rheumatoid arthritis. I've got the rheumatoid factors and everything like that have come up in my blood, and this new doctor is dismissing all of this, basically just saying, I mean, it's all in my head.
And I just wanted to add, I mean, a lot of these things that she has are, I mean, things that are normal. I mean, doctors find to be normal solutions for other people do not work with her.
No, it tend to be... It's like typical thing that a doctor will do if you have swelling is ice. Well, I'm kind of just the opposite on a lot of that stuff. Is ice will cause muscle spasms and actually cause a lot more problems. And so with me, I use heat. It's just like a small little minor thing. But
and you mentioned that, I mean, your longtime doctor, I mean, had mentioned about you that you're like an enigma wrapped in how do you a conundrum. A
conundrum wrapped in an enigma is how he said it.
Those were his words.
That was his exact words, actually. And so, I mean, it's been difficult, but I mean, he's seen me. I mean, and my other doctor had seen me from like my skinniest and years ago up to, I mean, like where I was even heavier than I am now. And then just he'd seen me through all of it through, and now my second marriage and pregnancy years ago and all that other stuff. So he knew me.
That they're trying to make up has, I mean, hardly anything to do with it. It's
because the health issues were there even before the weight was an issue.
Yeah.
And the mobility has always been an issue. And it's been worse after some accidents that I've had in the last, one in 97, one in 2013 were the worst ones. But basically, they didn't want to look at any of that. And they were he was offering to prescribe me weight loss drugs. He goes and I'm like, no. And he said, are you refusing treatment? And I'm like, that's not what I'm here for. And he said, well, if you want your problems to get better, you gotta take the action. And I'm just
They
like,
weren't even freaking listening to anything she was saying. She's telling me this on the phone in her part of the story before I even got home.
and they're just berating me, and then they're talking about where the BMI, where my BMI should be and where my BMI is, and just that's all they're focusing on. They're not. My other doctors have always done tests and stuff with the joints, and I just was randomly doing it with him yesterday. Big thing with the hands. Forgive me, honey. I'm not trying to torture you, but I mean, it's just gently squeezing the joints like this on the fingers, and
And we kind of learned
then
that
just kind of doing
when
like
she was.
just, and it's not squeezing them hard, but it's just doing enough.
And, well, last night when you were first telling me the story and describing all this, we were finding out that I guess I got issues too. But,
Yeah, he's got
that's
some.
another
He's got some
story.
trigger points for fibromyalgia, things that would technically indicate the beginning stages of fibromyalgia, which we didn't realize till I was kind of just talking him through the whole thing. But the doctors didn't even. I mean, besides shaking my hand, there was no physical contact. Oh, except the fact that he put his hand on my knee at one point, trying to make it sound like, trying to make it almost appear like
I mean,
he
if
was
her
being.
longtime doctor was doing a lot of these simple little, well, what might seem simple little tests, or a little bit more than what most doctors do. I mean, if that, I mean, is an indication of how a person's feeling, and these guys ain't doing none of that, I mean, what the heck? They shouldn't even be in their position.
And the last test that my other doctor had ordered was an EMG study on the nerves on my legs. And he had actually recommended that they do a follow up. And so I was maybe expecting to schedule something like that yesterday, because he was talking about like following it up and doing it again to see what the differences were, since it appeared that some of the nerve function in my legs was decreasing. I mean, to maybe track it. And there was no interest in even. I brought up the thing about the EMG study, and they were just as like, oh, there's no need for that. So it's very frustrating. And then I finally get out of there, and then they're like, well, oh, this is before I leave, but they're like, well, at this point, we just don't really see any reason for you to continue care here. We're just going to go ahead and forward everything to your GP, general practitioner, and just kind of let them take over your care for now. So it's like I've been under the care of a rheumatologist for 3/4 of my life for these types of issues, and now they're just like, big deal. Lose the weight, you'll be fine. And I'm a lot calmer today than I was yesterday. Yesterday, I was shaking, and I was on the verge of tears. And I was just upset, and I called him, and I just wanted to get out of there. And then as I leaving the office, and I've got my sheet in hand, and they wanted me to there was no like follow-up appointment to make, and so I just have to check out and leave. And so I'm checking out, and I'm going down the elevator, and the gals there wiping down the buttons again. I get down to the main level, and I take the sticker off. Big deal. I'm leaving the complex. Security guy goes, ma'am, you need to keep that on until you exit the building. I'm exiting. Well, you can't stop for any reason, ma'am. You need to just exit the building. I'm going. And he literally walks and watches me walk like out the exit doors. And I get out over by the elevators to go to the parking garage thing, and I just pulled the mask off. I'm just like, it at this point. I mean, I'm right. There was nobody over there, thankfully, but I do that, and it's like Lexi was literally in sight. I'm just like beelining it to Lexi just to get the hell out of there.
By the way, she mentioned that there were masks all over the parking garage.
Yeah, all over the parking garage. There were masks, like I probably saw 15 to 20 masks just on the ground, just casually discarded for the most dangerous virus in history. Oh, and speaking of that, when I was still upstairs, a nurse that came upstairs to let them know that my PCR test had come back positive. No, mind you, no symptoms. Now, there's no such thing as an asymptomatic thing either. But I challenged this when the nurse came in, and I'm like, okay, did the PCR test come back for COVID or flu? And she's looking at the paper, and she goes, Well, we really can't distinguish between them.
But they were automatically going to put on the label COVID.
Yeah, but she changed it to flu because they couldn't distinguish, and because I was not running a fever or had any other symptoms.
And
So
we
I
did
honestly
both
believe it
mostly
was,
fine this whole time.
yeah, if anything, it was a false positive of anything because I'm fine type thing. And then it's like everybody was like double masking up and stuff around me. And I'm just like, I'm not sick, people. It's a bunch of shit.
Totally.
And then just the amount of disrespect and everything. It's like they just walk in. They had their minds made up before I even walked in that room. Oh, and then they made it a point that they were telling me, oh, I need to lose all this weight. But according to the paperwork, I had lost 18 pounds since my last visit 6 weeks ago. My weight fluctuates. On my last visit, I happened to be really swollen. I don't remember why I was so poofy, but I remember the other doctor even commented that I had quite a bit of swelling. And so I'm assuming that's the weight difference between then and yesterday. But they were commenting that was worrisome that I had lost it that quickly. But at the same time, they're talking about putting me on pills to make me lose weight. And I'm just like, no. And to clarify, they didn't give me any new prescriptions. They criticized some of the prescriptions that I'm on. Not going to go into a whole lot of details on that. But just, they saw like my antidepressants and stuff like that. And they were just instantly had their minds made up of what it meant.
Well, and then, I mean, Benjamin mentioned about the testing positive and all that. They weren't wanting to give you freaking shots that your doctor said he didn't want to read your obituary.
My doctor had told me his exact words, don't you dare. I don't want to read your obituary. And his voice shook, and he was like right in my face, and he had his hand on my shoulder telling me that. And
this doctor is like, I mean, he's a cool guy and all that, but he's a straight shooter.
Yeah, he didn't.
He knows his stuff. He genuinely cares about his patients.
And let me preface, I do know I do need to lose weight. I am not 150 pounds overweight. If I lost 150 pounds, I would look anemic. I would look very sickly if I lost that much weight. And that's not that. That's just doesn't make any sense. I've been at that weight that if I lost 150 pounds, that I would be down to, and that's scary skinny. That's like counting ribs skinny. So that's not a good thing. But I do know I need to lose weight, and I've been working on different things and trying to do that. I'm reclined back. It's like I don't normally have quite this much of a double chin, but it's like I know I'm not a small gal, and I'm fully aware of that and trying to work on things with that. But it's just,
they were wanting to
yesterday they're like,
you.
We have all the vaccines here, and we could go ahead and give you your full vaccine series and go ahead and give you your booster shot while you're here today. They were discussing giving me all 3 shots. Bam, bam, bam. No. And they asked if I was refusing those, and I went, yes, I am. I was like, and I just mentioned that the other doctor had specifically told me not to get those.
Oh, and then they were acting like the doctor was just like, oh, just being nice and all.
Yeah,
that.
they were like, oh, he's placating you. That was the word that they used. I was trying to remember that. Jerks. Yeah, they were saying that he was just placating me over the years. And it's no, he was not just placating. He was not afraid to call shit out. No, he sent me to the Mayo Clinic years ago.
I didn't know this was the doctor as long as she has, but I can kind of read people and all that, and yeah, he was straight, and he was real. He wasn't, fake by any means.
He would call a spade a spade. If something needed to be done, and he wouldn't. It's like, maybe. No, he would just come out and say it.
You said he was been a doctor for something like almost 50 years or 45, something like that. Yeah, he's been around a while.
And he was even reluctant to get the jabs and everything with everything that was going on and everything, but he wanted to have the opportunity to see his patients one last time, so he reluctantly did it.
And it didn't do too well for him.
No, him and his wife were both experiencing issues from it. So yeah, they're worthless. The jabs are absolutely worthless. I mean, and even when I was still seeing him in the midst of all this, because I had seen him twice during this quote unquote scamdemic thing, but both times he walked in the room and like right away, it's like he had to wear like the whole mask and everything in the hallways, but as soon as he walked in the room, took it off. This was even prior to being jabbed and everything with all that. It's like, and he knows I've got some immune system issues and everything like that. And for him to specifically say, don't you dare, because he didn't want to read my obituary. I
That
mean,
says a lot.
I have shared that with so many people that's what he told me on that. And then to go from having a doctor that has literally known me for the majority of my life, that was such a straight shooter, and then in the exact same office get such disrespect and such.
Even you were even mentioning that his assistant, I mean, ended up leaving too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was a
So
gal.
it's almost like anybody that was there before ain't there no more. I mean, it's become
Yeah, his PA
dictatorial
had been there for
detention
years,
center.
and they said that she got transferred to a different department.
I gotta imagine with the way they're treating people and probably treating people that were there before, they probably ousted them, or she probably voluntarily like, I'm done with this.
Mm-hmm.
Just a guess. I mean, I don't know, but
That'd probably be my guess, because I mean, it just was. There was zero standard of care. It's like if you didn't fit in this little box of what they were expecting.
you didn't count.
No, and they had their minds made up long before they even saw me. It's like, oh, okay, this is all in her head. She just needs to lose weight and she'll be fine. Oh, and then he brought up he was asking how I do take care of myself, and I mentioned chiropractic care. And our chiropractor is both a friend and one hell of a chiropractor, and he's one of the reasons that I have some mobility that I have, because without him I would have little to no mobility.
I don't know if we can mention his name.
Oh yeah, Travis Bangert.
He's done all. I mean, he's done babies.
Yeah, he adjusts all ages, and you'd be amazed what your spine affects, and it's not just adjusting your back. It affects how your organs work. It affects, allergies. It affects skin conditions. Everything. It's like
and he always goes around, to these seminar things or whatever, and getting the latest and greatest and stuff. He just really stays in tune to what's going on in the chiropractic world.
And they were looking at my chart, or the doctor and the PA that was in there with him were looking at my chart, and they're like, "We see you've had 2 serious neck injuries." And for a little bit further clarification, at 5 years old, I got pulled off a teeter-totter and broke C1, and I was in a full halo everything for about 3 months. And that was a really bad situation. And then in 2013, an accident where I fractured C1, 2, 3, and 4. For those who aren't familiar, those are the C1 is the vertebra that touches the skull, and then 2, 3, and 4 are directly underneath of it.
Well, and then your car accident.
That one didn't break. That one didn't damage the neck, though. That was the lower back.
Down or whatever that messed you up.
Yeah, did a lot of damage to my lower back. But
saved your son in the process. Saved him, but it messed you up.
Yeah, I would do it again in a heartbeat. But they were just like, yeah, you should not be seeing anybody who just cracks your neck. And I'm like, that's not what chiropractic is. It's like, I don't just go there and he just cracks my neck. He feels kind of things out, and he's gotten to know my spine over. He's been a chiropractor for 12 years now. So.
Not very many people that can get her, back and neck and all that the way that he can.
Yeah.
There's other ones that get real close, and everyone's a little bit different, but sometimes she just needs him to do it because he's good at what he does.
Yeah, and
for me, he's a little hard on, but and sometimes he gets it just right.
But yeah, for my back,
it's right.
He knows where to use a little bit more pressure and where to use a little bit less, just kind of, but he does that with each patient. And there's different doctors there. He's got, I don't even know, 4 doctors there in his office at the moment, and multiple offices.
We were going to him when he was, still pretty new, and now he's, probably 4 times bigger than when he started.
Oh,
maybe
wait,
5.
I would say 10.
And
We
another,
were some of his
and
first
just
200 patients, and he's had like over 8,000
well, and
now.
then just a cool thing too. I mean, we did a little. I mean, we do these reviews on Google Earth on occasion at different places we go to, and he is our number one. I mean, viewed. I mean,
Of the things that we
business
reviewed,
that
because
we
it shows how many,
business that we've done.
yeah, it shows like how many views of the reviews and stuff that we've done, and yeah, the pictures of his place and our reviews of there have just been stellar.
I don't know what the latest is, but I thought it was something like 200,000 or some crazy number. It might have been 40,000. I don't know, but it was
It's
something.
huge.
Yeah, it was 5 or 6 digit.
But it's just, I mean, I've got a lot of ists. By that I mean I've got a cardiologist, I've got an endocrinologist, I had a rheumatologist. I mean,
She's
got
had 2 retire in the last couple years.
an OBGYN, which is a gynecologist.
Saved her life.
Yeah, that's another long story in and of itself. But it's like I've got a lot of ists, but my ists have been shrinking because my neurologist retired, and now my rheumatologist not only retired, and I don't blame him on this at all, but it's just
No.
the new doctors that are there are just. I feel sorry, buddy. I feel sorry for people who need certain specialists and are looking for answers and hitting that brick wall, because I've been there, and through years of testing and trials, this doctor was able to pinpoint things that were wrong with me. Like I'd mentioned earlier, he even sent me to Mayo Clinic at one point for some tests and for a trial program thing that they were doing at the moment at that time. And this was back in like 97, 98, no, 98, 98, 1998 for the younger audiences, but it made such a huge difference. And then I would go up there and they would test what they call my ANA levels. And it has to do with the rheumatoid factor, and it has to do with some other things in my health. And there was no care shown, no mention of running any tests or anything yesterday, which was so weird because I was so used to like having these tests done, having these things to kind of check and see where things are at, let us know where things are worsening, and like what to maybe do correct to kind of bring things back into a range where it's not declining as quickly. And it's just so frustrating because I went from having like a bunch of specialists within a certain area of the Midwest here, and now, I mean, as these doctors are aging out of and eventually retiring, it's just very frustrating for me because not only am I starting from scratch on some of these things, because these doctors just don't take 20 plus, almost 30 years of
And
my records, and they're just like, doesn't matter. She's just fat. Screw it.
well, and another frustrating thing too is you read these articles and stuff. I mean, I read a bunch of stuff about, I mean, various things, and it's like a lot of people are going into just doctor fields. I mean, just kind of run of the mill doctors, but not very many people are going into the specialist fields.
No, there's a huge shortage of people going into specialty medicine nowadays. And honestly, I don't blame them.
Yeah, there's not much incentive.
No. It's just, I mean, the Obamacare shit hurt a lot of people, and then this whole thing of just this one size fits all medicine is.
Medicine is not a one size fits all.
No, I mean, yeah, there may be standards that work for probably at least maybe 60% of society, and for the most part. And yeah, we know like healthy blood pressure numbers apply to everybody and things like that. But I mean, there's even been variations in bodily temperature issues and
But
stuff
certain
like.
people need special care of sorts. I mean, face it, they're different.
Mm-hmm.
And they can't all be treated the same.
And it's not that I want to be different. I mean, heck, I would love
No.
to just fit into a cookie cutter, but I got to deal with what life has dealt me. So I mean, it's got to roll with it.
Yeah.
And that's a whole other story in and of itself. But I just kind of wanted to touch on some of this stuff. And
Mm-hmm. I mean, we know it's long and all that, but we just wanted to get the story out. And if any of you out there have any stories to share, I mean,
please do.
Yeah, I mean, the more that we can get people out there sharing, the better this is.
And
Or it's better it's going to be.
I know it's frustrating when you get doctors like what I ran into yesterday. And there's even general practitioners that way. It's like they're so, I mean, their field of where they want to study is like this, when it needs to be like, what, I mean, you can't, not everybody's going to fit within that little box. And when you limit your scope of understanding and your scope of knowledge to that, you're alienating a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you'll only have one of those patients in your entire practice as a doctor. But who knows what it could open up for a world of understanding for other people if that one doctor does things. And then, like my doctor had actually written articles regarding some of my medical conditions in the National Journal of Medicine that went on to help other doctors with other patients, not only in our country, but in certain areas around the world as well.
Yeah, I mean, when people go into these fields of specialty type, I mean, medical care and all that, I mean, they um, help me out here. I mean,
But I mean, they're trying to make an impact.
yeah, I mean, they're making an impact not only on the patients that they're currently seeing, but on the ones that are apprenticeship under. I mean, under their performance and all that, what they're doing, I mean, because what they're doing is not only beneficial to the patients and all that, but it's beneficial to the students under them.
And so many people fail to realize that. They're like, well, if it doesn't fit into like this category, I mean, it's not worth.
And it's not just knowing about I mean, the patients is. I mean, is their number. I mean, it's. I mean, patients. I think generally like people when they're down to earth and they. I mean, communicate with them. I mean, like they're a person.
Mm-hmm.
And she calls it bedside manners.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the general term for it. Is, I mean,
Yeah.
bedside, because it's not just the doctor being knowledgeable; it's how the doctor interacts with the patient, and it's how, I mean, things are discussed, and just it's a whole gamut, all wrapped into one.
Mm-hmm.
Not that the and like again, it doesn't just fit into a simple box. So, but this is going to be uploaded to our YouTube channel, and if you want to hear more stuff like this, subscribe, give us a like on this stuff. We're not doing it just for this stuff, but I mean, it's just people need to start speaking out about this more.
Mm-hmm.
There's not enough people that are willing to talk about this.
No,
So,
a lot of people stay silent.
I mean, like I said, I mean, I know I've got some issues I need to work on and working on them and everything, but don't we all? So, sign up for now. Stormy Duo. Talk to you later.